Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to St Peter Mancroft Church for today's live-streamed Wednesday reflection. My name's Gill Persicke. I'm one of the lay ministers here. And the title of today's little reflection is The Virtues of Lying. And I want to start by challenging you. If you tell me that you've never ever told a lie, you'll certainly be lying. Have you never exaggerated just a little to turn an everyday anecdote into a really fascinating one? Have you never told a social lie? Told someone that their new haircut is really great when it really isn't? Have you never made a dodgy excuse? The dog ate my homework. Or as an adult, oh, I think my husband must have forgotten to write it in the diary. Now, you may not have done all these things, but you will sure as eggs have done something along these lines from time to time. Because human beings seem to be really addicted to these comparatively minor forms of lying, some of which, to be honest, actually serve to smooth the social fabric of our lives. But there are, of course, much nastier forms of lying doing the rounds. The woman who rings me to tell me that there's been suspicious activity on my Amazon account, which she can stop if only I give her my bank details, is most certainly lying. I know that for sure because I haven't got an Amazon account. Criminals have always lied, of course, but social media makes it so very much easier and so much more effective. Most parents nowadays are really concerned about how to protect their child from being groomed online or from becoming a victim of the hideous new crime of sextortion. And what about politics? The experts are all warning us right now, all of us, to be really on the lookout for online deep fakery. In the run-up to the general election, artificial intelligence is actually enabling really sophisticated new forms of visual and audible lying, in which the images and the voices of politicians can be manipulated in order to swing a general election. So, in view of all this nastiness, what on earth am I doing here in church in questioning whether lying can ever actually be virtuous? Well, I want to give this some thought, and particularly with reference to the very young and the very old. So let's start with the little ones, and with Father Christmas and the Tooth Fairy. Now, there are a very few very determined parents who absolutely refuse, in the name of truth, to play along with these common fictions. Parents who never surreptitiously fill a Christmas stocking with little toys in the middle of the night, or pop a pound in a glass in payment for that milk tooth which has just fallen out. Yes, a very few, very determined parents do hold out in this way. But the psychologists tell us that they can thus, quite inadvertently, cause their children rather a lot of harm. It's all to do with the cultivation of imagination and creativity and wonder. If a child's world is ruthlessly stripped of all fantasy and story, something absolutely critical to that child's development really is lost, together with, to be honest, a great deal of fun. No, I think most of us would agree that it's good to play along mostly with the stories which surround our children culturally. The Tooth Fairy doesn't really exist, but it's part of the magic of childhood. So adults choose to enable children to believe in her. And perhaps there's a profound learning experience too in that moment when the illusion eventually is shattered for the child, because there a step is taken along the road to the adult world. Yeah, so most people will comfortably lie to children about Father Christmas. But recent experiences raise for me a far more harrowing question. Is it right to lie to elderly people about reality? I have an elderly relative who is now experiencing moderate to severe dementia. And it struck me that both her carers, her professional carers, and I myself are beginning more and more to lie to her. And that idea does feel a bit uncomfortable. I think we do it for two separate reasons. The first is to avoid unnecessary hurt and pain. And so many relatives of people with dementia report the same kind of incident. Let's imagine an elderly man with dementia, let's call him Reggie. And he tells you that Rosie visited him yesterday. And Rosie is actually a beloved wife or auntie or sister who died several years ago. So, what to do? Well, the advice from the experts, and it's good advice, is not to contradict what Reggie has said. If you insist on the truth and tell him that no, that's not possible because Rosie died in 2018, you are quite likely to tip him back into grief again. He's forgotten all about the death, and you've actually managed to re-trigger his first, sharpest pangs of grief. And what on earth is the purpose of that? No, to me, and to people who understand dementia much better than I do, there is real virtue in lying here. It's good and right to tell a lie in these particular circumstances. But I think there's another, more subtle but much lovelier reason to lie to that person who has dementia. And it's this. Dementia undeniably carries people into a different world, in many ways undeniably a troubled and a confusing world. But at other times, surprisingly, their world is a beautiful place. My elderly relative has a stuffed toy rabbit and a robotic therapy cat, very lifelike, in her room. And at times, these animals are utterly real to her. She feeds them and talks to them and loves them. And I join her in that fiction. And these periods of the two of us relating together to these animals are actually some of the happiest times we spend together. It doesn't feel like a lie to talk to the rabbit and the cat with my relative. It feels like a great privilege to enter into her alternate reality and to be her companion in it. And to go back to my previous example, if Rosie, who is dead, seems real and alive and present to Reggie, who has dementia, I want to join him in acknowledging Rosie. I want to spend time with Rosie alongside him, not just remembering their past, but experiencing that past as a present blessing. This is empathy for another human being at its most powerful, entering fully into their reality. And there is virtue in that. And perhaps Reggie even has a lesson to teach those of us who don't have dementia. Human love may be flawed and complex, but there is also something eternal and indestructible in love. And Reggie knows that for real when he meets and spends time with Rosie now. So, check out the lies which you inevitably tell. Avoid the nasty, damaging ones with all your strength. Be a bit selective in the social lying which you may do, but also be aware that sometimes wisdom and empathy and love might just demand that you do tell a lie or two. So don't be afraid to follow that imperative. It might just come from God. Thank you for joining me today for this little reflection, and I wish you every blessing for the rest of the day.